Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into an incredibly fascinating intersection of ideas. We're going to explore the deep, surprising connections between ancient folklore, our modern legacy legal systems, and the cutting-edge architecture of digital sovereignty. If you've ever felt completely stuck trying to navigate a bloated tech monopoly or a bureaucratic nightmare, you are absolutely going to want to pay close attention to this one.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the tar baby metaphor, look at the legacy system trap, weigh voice versus exit, talk about reclaiming the substrate, and finally, dive into the network state solution.
All right, part one, the tar baby metaphor, or a problem that just worsens the more you fight it.
Let's kick things off with a historical motif that perfectly captures what we're talking about. In classic trickster folklore, specifically analyzed by Brian Wagner, there's this crude technological trap called the tar baby. The story usually goes that a fox builds a figure out of tar and turpentine to catch a rabbit. But here's the kicker. The harder the rabbit fights and strikes the trap, the more impossibly stuck he gets. It's the ultimate metaphor for a sticky situation that just compounds and worsens the more you struggle against it.
This metaphor is actually so potent that it made its way into high-level geopolitical strategy. Back in the 1970s, the U.S. State Department under Henry Kissinger literally named a foreign policy the tar baby option. It referred to a strategy of cautious engagement with deeply flawed foreign governments in southern Africa. Officials explicitly warned against it, basically arguing, look, if we engage with these systems, we're going to be stuck if the policy fails. Any entanglement would become an inescapable trap.
Moving on to Section 2, the legacy system trap, wet code and GUI illusions.
So, what's the modern equivalent of the tar baby? Well, it's the legacy systems we interact with every single day. Everything from massive legal frameworks right down to the screens on our phones. To understand this trap, we kind of need to contrast two distinct environments. On one hand, you have wet code. This is the messy, highly subjective realm of human law and bloated graphical user interfaces, or GUIs. It's fluid and associative. On the other hand, you have dry code. This is the deterministic, rigidly perfect world of machine logic, Boolean equations, and command line interfaces.
This tension is absolutely nailed by a quote from legal scholar Eben Moglen. He points out that when we rely on tech monopolies to build shiny graphical buttons for us, when we operate purely in their wet code world, we're basically trading our profound human expressive power for a restrictive cloud enclosure. We get reduced to chimpanzees just hitting levers for a dopamine hit. Instead of being sovereign operators writing our own explicit commands, we become mere tenants renting capabilities from an invisible tech monarch.
And we see this exact same tension playing out in the legal system. Canadian courts, for example, use the living tree doctrine to adapt the law to our messy, constantly evolving human reality. But when we try to perfectly codify all those fluid human nuances into strict digital frameworks, like trying to enforce strict textualism through unyielding smart contracts, it usually breaks down. Fighting or trying to fix these massive legacy systems from the inside is today's tar baby. It literally just traps us in endless litigation, bureaucracy, and a kind of wet code gridlock.
Which brings us to Section 3, voice versus exit, the power of walking away.
So if arguing with a tech monopoly or fighting an entrenched legal system is just like punching a tar baby, how do we actually win? The answer lies in a brilliant framework introduced by economist Albert O. Hirschman back in 1970. He pointed out that when people are dissatisfied with a system, an organization, or even a state, they basically have two choices. They can use voice, which means staying inside and complaining or campaigning for reform, or they can use exit, which means entirely withdrawing their participation, their capital, and their presence.
This perfectly illustrates the divergence in outcomes. Using voice against an entrenched monopoly or legacy state, yeah, that is the ultimate tar baby trap. You expend a massive amount of energy, get totally bogged down in endless bureaucracy, and honestly, rarely move the needle. But exit starves the legacy system of your energy. By simply withdrawing your custom and moving on, you create this incredible space to build parallel, highly efficient systems from scratch. It fosters true innovation.
We really have to stop and ask ourselves, does it make any sense to continually beg an agent to king, whether that's a massive cloud computing monopoly or a stagnant bureaucracy, for tiny incremental freedoms? Or should we just pack up our digital bags, migrate our resources, and transition to a fundamentally new architecture?
That leads perfectly into Section 4, reclaiming the substrate and securing your digital freedom.
To effectively walk away and actually claim our digital sovereignty, we have to understand the mechanics of building outside that cloud enclosure. How do you pull off a successful exit? Escaping the foggy, probabilistic miasma of the cloud requires a strict architectural pipeline. You can't just float in the digital ether, you've got to be anchored. Step 1. You physically own and secure the substrate, meaning the actual hardware sitting on your desk. Step 2. You publish your unalterable intent using explicit deterministic code. And step 3, you execute that code locally on your own machine, completely bypassing any external cloud APIs that might censor or meter what you're doing. The crucial piece here is how we mathematically prove that intent. Enter innovations like the ERC 7827 standard. Think of it as a perfectly rigid digital ledger, a smart contract that stacks commands one by one so they absolutely cannot be tampered with. By putting your digital commands into this bit-perfect format, you create an unbreakable root. It essentially unlocks highly efficient single-entry bookkeeping on the blockchain, acting as a flawless, mathematical seal on your digital promises.
But a digital root needs a physical leaf, right? That perfect on-chain record has to travel down what the sources call the semiotic bridge to a physical leaf node. The documentation highlights a really cool device called a cheerbot, which houses a local Raspberry Pi. When the blockchain updates, the cheerbot reads that exact code and triggers physical electrical pins, known as GPIO pins, on the device itself. This directly translates your unalterable digital intent into tangible, real-world action in your living room without ever having to ask a tech giant for permission.
And finally, Section 5, the network state solution. Digital first, land last.
When you scale up this combination of secure digital exit, local execution, and blockchain alignment across thousands of people, you arrive at a massive socio-political innovation, the network state. According to Balaji Srinivasan, a network state completely flips the traditional model of secession on its head. It's digital first, land last. So instead of violently fighting for physical borders, you organize a highly aligned digital community first, built entirely on voluntary bottom-up consent. Initially, this nests peacefully within legacy legal frameworks, maybe as a nonprofit or special economic zone. But eventually, as it crowdfunds physical territory globally and scales its economy, it can actually seek diplomatic recognition. It wins through innovation and opt-in participation, not conflict.
So how does this actually build a durable society? Well, in this new digital frontier, the ultimate guarantor of your uncoerced right to exit isn't a military, and it isn't paper treaties. It's cryptography. Concepts like Pax Bitcoinica suggest that decentralized networks sit above legacy states and naturally constrain their overreach. Because your private keys cannot easily be seized by force, your freedom to move your assets and join a new network state is mathematically guaranteed.
As this massive paradigm shift unfolds, the choice regarding your digital infrastructure is sitting squarely in your lap. Are you going to remain hopelessly tangled in the legacy tar baby, fighting systems that are quite literally designed to ensnare you? Will you just accept being a mere tenant in the cloud enclosure? Or will you seize your cryptographic keys, secure your own physical hardware, and ride out as a true sovereign pilot? The choice of how you exit is entirely up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the architecture around you, and I'll catch you next time.